know this about where your readers and viewers are and how they're consuming news. First, the top 10 domains for internet content, all right, where the page views are going. 2001, the top 10 had 31% of the pages. In 2010, 75%. A few are really dominating the system. One other. 2012, 250 million consumers will have touchscreen devices. And for most of those, there will be news apps, maybe multiple. Profound. 2012, not that far away. There are basically two empires that have been created with mostly complementary business models. One you enter through search, and that's got north of 150 million. It is open. It is aimed at trying to drive the value of content down to its lowest possible price. Someone who would be in this empire would look at all the photographers that would go to a football game or a World Cup match and see that as redundant. You don't need that many. You don't need 200 photographers at a World Cup match. We had 6 at every World Cup match. All the other agencies had that many, a couple hundred photographers. That was redundant to that group. Only need a couple. And the model is broadcast. Broadcast being what? Anybody? Somebody? I saw some sign-up sheets from broadcast. What's the broadcast business model? Eyeballs. Lots of them, right? Tonnage. Over here is a network, particularly a type of store with devices that sells all kinds of content, really aiming at what we think as the power users or news hounds. We think that market is at least 20%. It may be as much as 30%, people who are interested in a lot of news and a lot of content. It is a closed network. They set the rules. You enter them at their... You can charge. They charge. They get $5 billion a year from selling content stuff already. I think they get $35 billion from selling gadgets. And they have a magazine model in that store. What's a magazine model? Niche. Niche. More narrowly targeted. Now, that's where readers and viewers are, and that's how news is being consumed. And we have to start there with that understanding. And then we try to say, let's fit this to what we have to do. What we have to do hasn't changed. The manner in which we have to do it may change. But what we have to do is still be relevant. Every reporter, every editor has to define relevance. If you can't resonate with the community, if you can't figure out how to tell a story, these days, they have lots of choices. So that's still our job, and we have to redefine that. So we've been looking at how stories work now, and we've come up with a few patterns. I'm going to give you 4. We can staff based on these story patterns. There's more than 4. We only have an hour, and I'm being simplistic today. 2 entry points to the market and 4 stories. But let's try these basics. There's the breaking story. If you look at volume of interest, number of eyeballs, and the time, the breaking story, People know it, get very interested, take it up, the story ends, and they move on. A ramp. Breaking is a ramp look at. There's the running story, the oil spill, Afghanistan. There's a level of interest, and it's sustained over time, pretty consistently. The staffing decisions are very different for those two. This one, breaking story, jump on it, put a lot of people on it, ends, you start pulling people off pretty quickly. Sustain, infrastructure, you're covering Iran or Afghanistan, Iraq, wow. You got big infrastructure if you're us, multi-million. We call this one the camel, episodic spikes of interest. Lindsay Lohan. This lake, I got to throw one of those in. It keeps coming back at you. But you have to stay with it, and you have to keep checking. You may not have extra people on it. The big event, a World Cup, an Olympics, you plan for it, interest goes way, way up, and then it peters out pretty quickly. We need to understand those things, and we need to understand news consumption for the new world.